Well, this is probably the greatest find in my life. I was a young boy, probably somewhere around 21, going to Vanderbilt University, and my parents had acquired an old plantation in Nashville called Melrose Plantation. The Melrose section of Nashville is named after it. And I had for years walked by this huge bush, driven by it, and really never paid any attention to it. But one day I was out walking by it and noticed that it was hollow on the inside. And so I pushed my way through it, and I thought, boy, would this have been great 10 years ago as a childhood hideout. But it is what the time was. But about that time, my foot stumbled on something. I kicked at it, and I could tell it was metal. I reached down to feel, and I could see that there was a lot of metal there. So I rushed back to the house and got a flashlight, came back, went back in the bush, and started moving dirt and debris away. And I could see a tube here that there was a cannon. I was so excited I didn't know what to do. At age 14, I had joined a organization called the Tennessee Gun Collectors Association because I've always been into weaponry and guns and firearms. And I called two people, Mr. Hal Swan and Mr. Hume Parks, to come and see what I had. They came over, we got some people to help us dig it all out, carried it to a garage and laid it out. Mr. Parks took all the information and numbers on it so he could trace out what it was. And I had all the metal parts. The wood off this cannon, of course, was decayed and rotten, but we had all the metal parts and everything. And of course, the most important part is the rifling or the tube itself. Mr. Parks comes back to me and tells me that he would like to make a deal with me. At that time, there was only one place in Virginia that did cannon restorations. And he and a group would be happy to have my cannon completely put back like you see it today if I would let them use it for the centennial, that they wanted to organize an artillery group and go around and participate in the Civil War centennial in 1960s. I agreed, we signed the documents, they sent it off, sent the cannon off, got it back. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was, like you see it here today, when it got back. And for the next 5 years, they went around and they were actually shooting the cannon. I got to see them shoot it when they did the reenactment of the Battle of Franklin. Every time they fired it, everybody got so excited. It was just thrilling. I fell in love with it. Of course, after it, they returned it to me, and I kept it down. And my dad, he owned Woodlawn Cemetery at the time, and I kept it there. You just don't run around with something like this big and heavy and do it. So, and it stayed there for a number of years, and then mysteriously it disappeared. And we'll just follow up that Mr. Hume Park, at 90 years of age, calls me one day and says, "Ronald, I found your cannon, and we're going to get it back." He called on a good friend, Senator Doug Henry in Nashville, who was a prominent legislator and lawyer, and they went together and worked it out. My cannon was delivered to me, but again, it was in shambles, just like it originally was. But I wanted to have it redone, and so this time there were three people, and we got all three of them to bid on putting it back together, and Mr. Parks helped me out tremendously. And we had it done by Sheen up in Kentucky, and they worked on it for about a year. The big thing about it today, when you go and see cannons that are mainly in battlefields and owned by the U.S. government, you'll notice that this part of the carriage, the wood part, is usually aluminum or some other metal so that it can stand outside. They tried to get me to go along with that program, but no, I wanted to have it original. So mine is all original wood like it originally was. The cannon was a Union cannon. And like so many things in the war between the states, to the victor goes the spoil. Ever who won the battle, they would go out and clean and pick up whatever they could and use it both south and north. So this cannon started off life in the Union Army and ended up life serving in the Confederacy. The man who owned the cannon at Melrose and placed it there was, I think his name was Captain John Morton. He was General Nathan Bedford Forrest's artillery officer. Forrest had 2 Union cannons that he loved because they were light and able to transport. He liked them so much he nicknamed them the Bull Pups. I don't know if this is one of the Bull Pups or not. If not, it's like the Bull Pups, because that's what I would think that Captain Morton would want in his front yard. So here we are today with a cannon. I hope it finds a permanent home out on the new battlefield that's being worked on in the Carnton area. And I always, of course, want it covered up because I don't want to leave it out and let it undergo a third restoration. And that pretty well tells the story of Ronald and his cannon.